Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Max Story.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks for stopping by the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. Man, this year's almost over. Got one more episode coming next week, and then we'll start the series on my book, 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation, How to Become Your Best Self. But in today's episode, I want to talk about the difference between an event and the process. Rhea and I have the privilege to speak all over this great nation, United States, and we've been in nearly 40 states in 2019, and that's covering a lot of ground, and it's a privilege. But what we do the most of is what we call an event. We go in and we speak for, sometimes it's only for an hour, sometimes it's up to 4 hours, sometimes it's a 12 hours, a day and a half. We do all types of events. But it's where we go in and we speak and we teach about leadership development, personal growth, that sort of stuff. And for many people, it's the first time they've ever been in an event like that. So it's a privilege and an honor for me and Rhea, especially when it's someone's first time to hear this type of content. It's a huge privilege for us to be the ones to get to deliver it. And I always tell people when I'm talking about it, if you've been in one of my events, you may have heard me say this, but I don't say it at every event. There's a lot of stuff to say, but a lot of times I will say it. And what I say is, after I've been talking a while and the people are kind of buying into the gift that their leader is giving them by having us in the room to try to help them get better. And usually they're giving them books and those sort of things. I like to tell them, I'll ask, how many of you are getting paid to be here? Most of the time, everybody raises their hand. Sometimes it's volunteer type deal, but most of the time people are getting paid to be here. And so usually they all raise their hand. And so I say, that's pretty amazing. And I'll say, I worked my first 20 years of my career, I worked in multi-billion-dollar global organizations. And never in 20 years did those multi-billion-dollar companies with plenty of money, they could have done it. They may still have never done it. But some of them have, some of them maybe not. But what I know is the 20 years that I worked in these global organizations, multi-billion dollars, they never invested one penny or 1 minute putting me in a room or introducing the type content that Rhea and I talk about when we're in the room, and we write about it in our books. So I tell them, if you enjoy what you're getting out of this, you need to go thank that leader today. You need to let them know that you valued it and it was worth their investment to put you in the room today. But then what I tell them, though, is for me personally, the first time I ever was exposed to it, because no leader ever done that for me, the first time I was ever exposed to this type of content, I had to pay $5,000 to be in their chair. That's what I want them to know. Your leader may have told you to be here today, and they may be paying you to be here, but the first time I got to hear the kind of stuff you're hearing, I paid $5,000 to sit in the seat and hear the man talk. And it was actually John Maxwell. And actually sitting beside me was my son, who I'd paid $5,000 so he could hear John talk for a few days. And I'm trying to impress upon the people in the room who've never heard this type of stuff how much some of us value it. And usually the people who value it the most compared to the people who value it the least, they're usually getting dramatically different results in their life. So I want to talk to you today. You may be a leader, or you may be a future leader or an aspiring leader. I'm always trying to talk to both crowds a little bit in my episodes, but I'm going to talk to you today like you're a leader who is having events or has had events in the past. And I want to talk to you about the process. And I learned what I'm about to tell you from John. John Maxwell. He says, we overestimate the event and we underestimate the process. We overestimate the event and underestimate the process. And I can give you a perfect example of that. A lot of people who have us in, we go in and we do an event, and they may not do anything else the rest of the year. And then next year, they may do another event with us, or they do an event with someone else. But the thing is, they do an event basically every year. But then in between, a lot of times they do nothing. And let me say this, doing an event once a year is far, far better than someone who does nothing ever. So if you're with me, I ain't bashing on the leaders who only do an event, because they're far beyond people who don't do anything. But what I want you to understand is there's a whole lot more to be gained by following through with the process, which comes after the event. And the reason is character is developed daily, not in a day. Leadership develops daily, not in a day. I tell the people when we're doing an event, I tell them a lot of times, I say, being in a room with us for 2 hours, or 3 hours, or 4 hours, it's like getting sprayed in the face with a fire hose. If you've never heard this stuff, even if you have, we're putting so much content out there, trying to get it to stick, some of it to stick with somebody so that they'll become interested, hopefully, and read the books that they've been given, or watch some videos, or listen to this podcast. Our main mission when we go doing an event, especially if it's the first event and we never know if we're coming back or if they're ever going to do another event, our number one goal is to motivate and inspire the people in the room to go invest in developing yourself, whether your leaders do or not. Don't put that burden on their shoulders. If they want to carry it, that's outstanding. But we should carry our own burden for developing ourselves. So let's talk about the difference between an event and the process. Help you understand that a little bit. Like I said, the event, that's the fire hose. You know, if I'm literally squirting you with a fire hose, you're going to get a little water in your mouth, but most of it's going to go straight past your head. That's just the way it is when you get sprayed with a fire hose. But the process, which comes after the event, and I'm going to talk about it. Right now, we hadn't really talked about it. You know, the event is us coming in and speaking. The process is doing something afterward. I call that the drip. So the fire hose is tearing you up in the face. You get a little water in your mouth. But the drip, I can drip some water in your mouth and you're going to get all of it in your mouth. Fire hose, you're going to miss most of it. And that's why the drip is so important. And I'll give you another example of that. I don't use this, but I've heard Simon Sinek talk about it. He talks about the event versus the process. And he says, think about taking care of your teeth. I know you can relate to this pretty easy. You know, most people go to the dentist 2 times a year for their checkup. That's an event. You're brushing and flossing 2-3 times a day. That's the process. But if you ignore the process, if you don't brush and floss, and all you do is go to the dentist a couple of times a year, your teeth are going to fall out. Your teeth are going to fall right out of your mouth. The process is where everything really, really happens. The event is more about motivation, inspiration, getting people together for networking, getting them fired up to go actually do the process. But it takes a leader to go do the process afterward. And a lot of leaders are not really leaders. They're managers. A lot of times we get invited in, and we're actually invited in from someone who's managing people. They don't understand all this, but I understand it. Sometimes leaders invite us, and then they follow through with the process afterward. Sometimes managers invite us, and nothing happens after we leave. It's a choice. Everybody has it. So the event, when we're doing an event, we're there to encourage decision making. That's what the event is about, is to encourage decisions. But the thing about decisions is, if someone comes to an event and they decide to do something, they haven't done a single thing. They're still sitting in the same chair they were sitting in when they decided to do it. But the process, on the other hand, and I'm going to use book studies for example, because that's why I do that special offer that I do, where we reduce our fees to $3,600, which is the cost of 200 books, and we give you 200 books. And then we speak up to 4 hours complimentary. We include that. It's a whole big package. So you're basically paying for the books. If you want to see it that way, we see it as you're paying us $3,600 and we're giving you the books, but it's the same thing, whichever way you want to see it. And then we give you up to 4 hours. But that's changing at the end of this year, at the end of 2019. So just not very long after this video or this audio is released. But the deal's still going to be there in 2020, but it's not going to be 4 hours of on-site speaking and development. It's going to be 2 hours. So if you're interested in that, I ain't going to, this episode is not about that, but I can't talk about what I want to talk about without mentioning it so you understand it. But go to bluecollarleadership.com, look at the special offer. The main thing is to know everything's the same except 2020, it drops from 4 hours to 2 hours with a special offer. And it tells you that on there. So I do that so that when we come in and do an event, the leaders have the books. That's for the process. It's also for those people who want to take responsibility for growing and developing themselves, even if the leader doesn't do that. They can read the books on their own. But my hopes and what I encourage and coach and mentor is for leaders to take those books and lead their teams through either 30-day or 30-week book studies. All those books, most of the books have 30 chapters, 3 pages each, cover a chapter in 6 or 7 minutes. That's the process. That's the drip. The process where the event encourages decisions, the process encourages development. And Rhea said this recently, the event is where we're taught, but the process is where we learn. We got to go apply what we were taught. Until we apply what we were taught, we haven't really learned. We've just heard or been exposed, that sort of thing. So the event motivates the people. That's the reason to do the event. Get people fired up once, twice a year or more. The more you do it, the better. But most people are not going to do an event very many times a year. But the event, that's meant to motivate and inspire people. But the process, the drip, that's meant to mature people. That's where the growth happens. That's where the learning happens. It's the most important part. But remember John's quote, we overestimate the event, underestimate the process. So we bring everybody in to the event, and then we do the process with no one. A lot of times is what happens. Or we only do it with upper level leaders because we don't value it. If we truly valued it, we'd do book studies with everybody in the organization. But like John says, and I agree, and I know 100%, the process is underestimated. The event is overestimated. Send people to a workshop or send them to an event, and then we wonder why there's not some amazing transformation. The reason is character development, leadership development. It happens daily, not in a day. The other thing about the event is a calendar issue. You put it on a calendar, you schedule it, everybody's focused on it. We go in, we make it happen. It's over. That's the way it works. The process, though, about learning the language, learning all the unifying principles relative to leadership development, personal growth, that's not a calendar issue. That's a culture issue. And culture develops daily, not in a day. Culture is changed daily, not in a day. So the event's a calendar issue. The process is a culture issue. Another thing, when we talk about the event challenges people. I can see the people's wheels spinning when we're in the room. People taking notes. Mentally, that's one of mine and Rhea's goals when we're in the room is to make sure we present some thought-provoking content. And we make sure to give the leader credit for creating a space for that. Which by what I mean by that is by putting the event on the calendar. bringing in team members to sit in the room. They don't have to focus on work. They can slow down and think. A lot of people could do that at home, but they don't. A leader who's creating an event, inviting people like us into the room, that's a big deal because he's slowing things down for the people so that they can think. So that's one of our goals, is to present challenging content, thought-provoking content, so the folks can think about it. But that happens at the event. The event challenges the people, should challenge the people. The process changes the people. That's why when you talk about culture, it's all about the process. The event actually becomes a part of the process. But the process should be developed from the initial event. First time a company's never done this, they have an event. Hopefully it encourages decisions. It motivates people. And it challenges them to go get better. That's what we try to do. But the only way they can do that, if that's the first one, is now they have to initiate the process. But if they truly initiate the process, at some point of the process, that'll be another event. But the event itself will go back to being a calendar issue. You can't rest on the calendar event. It's not going to transform the culture. 1 or 2 events a year, not going to transform the culture. Ain't going to happen. I can tell you that. Anybody else who understands it, they can tell you that. If you've tried it, you can tell me that. The other thing about the event, it's easy. It's so easy. The hardest thing is getting people to be available. The hard thing is not spending the money for most people. It's actually allowing time for the people to become available to actually sit in a chair, to be spoken to and talked to be engaged with and interacted with. The event's easy. And for the people in the room, man, that's so easy. All they got to do is sit there. That's what the event is about, sitting there. That's why it's not hard to do an event. It don't matter if you're the CEO sitting in the room or you're the frontline entry-level person sitting in the room, someone in between. On the day of the event, all you have to do is sit there. That's pretty easy. But see, the process, that's where the transformation happens. The process is difficult. It's underestimated, and it's difficult. So even if you don't underestimate it and you understand the value of the process, the other thing you got to know is it's going to be difficult. Now you got to make time every day. Now you got to have the discipline to do it every day or every week. Every day is always better when we're talking about the drip, but the week's better than no drip. But how do you engage your team, everybody, yourself, first of all, to initiate the process and keep it going? John Maxwell also says this. He says, too often we try to microwave our leaders. That's why we have so many Pop-Tart leaders. We need to stop microwaving leaders and start crock-potting leaders. Leadership development takes time. And those are the words of John Maxwell. There is no doubt about it. And anyone can be a leader. I just made a post recently. You hear this. If you read and study leadership, you've heard this a lot. People always want to know, are leaders born or are leaders made? And I'm here today to tell you, neither. See, people who ask that question, what that's called actually is a false dichotomy. If you're not familiar with the word dichotomy, basically what false dichotomy means is you're given a choice, in this case, 2 choices, but they're false. And it implies there is no other choice. They say, people ask, are leaders born or made? As if one of those is the right answer. And I'm here to tell you they're both the wrong answer, because there's a third alternative. And the third alternative is leadership is a choice. It's a choice that anyone can make. No one is born a leader of people. They've got to make choices. They've got to make choices throughout their life to become a leader, the kind of person that people want to follow, voluntarily. That's what a high impact leader is. So it doesn't matter who you are, what family you are in, you've got to make choices that are going to make you become a leader. Leadership is a choice. Can everybody lead at the same exact level? Probably not. Can everybody get better than they are today? Absolutely. Some of it may have to do with the way we think, our genetics, our intelligence, these things that actually do vary between people. But what doesn't vary is the principle of everybody can get better at leading and influencing people. So the other side of that, so leaders are not born. The other side is, are leaders made? I'm going to tell you right now, I can't make anybody become a leader. I can't make anybody become a better leader. And this is the same reason, because it's a choice. The event would work if all I had to do was walk into a room and I could make everybody automatically start making better choices and become a leader. If I could make everybody read a book a week, apply what they learned every day, oh, life would be great. I could make leaders. But guess what? I can't make leaders. I can't make you do any of those things. You can't make someone else do it. You can influence them to make a choice to do it, but the choice is theirs. So leaders are not born. Leaders are not made. Leadership is a choice. So if you're a formal authority leader, you absolutely need to do events, but you cannot, if you truly want to transform a culture, you cannot avoid the process. And that's where the highest cost, that's where the greatest sacrifice is going to come. Again, that's why most people don't do it. You see some great companies out there, they killing it character-wise. They're attracting great people. They're getting ridiculous results. And it's because they value the process. If not equal to the event, greater than the event. And that's where I say the event simply then becomes part of the process. But you can't buy that. You can't buy leadership development. You can't buy character development. We just spoke recently, just a couple of weeks ago, we were in West Virginia talking to a room full of leaders at a bridge construction company. And that's one of the things that I was talking about there. You can't buy character. But what I was talking about was what I'm about to share with you here. Let's say there's an intersection. 4 businesses, just use fast food as an example. There are a lot of those at busy intersections. Let's say the top character-wise fast food chain is on one corner. Whoever that is, you probably know who it is. Whoever that is, put them on the corner. They got billions of dollars. They can buy that expensive property. They can buy that fancy building. They can buy the best ingredients. They could pay for all kinds of training. Guess what? Their competition can do the same exact thing. They got billions of dollars. They can buy one of the other 3 corners. They can buy the best equipment. They can pay for training. They can do all that kind of stuff. But for some reason, they still can't keep up with the best organization relative to leadership. And the reason is because it's all about character development. And I don't know about you, but in my mind, as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking of Chick-fil-A. All you got to do is turn on the news or go do some research about Chick-fil-A, and you'll see they're gaining ground. They've done amazing things in the 50 plus years they've been in business. Nothing against the other folks. They're just not in the news the way Chick-fil-A is in the news. They could be, but they can't buy it. They have to earn it. And they understand what they have to do, but they still can't just do it. Even the top CEO at any company, they can't just decide I'm going to have better character tonight, and tomorrow I'm going to walk in with better character, and it's just going to flow through my organization. It started with Truett Cathy, and it flowed through the organization. And you can look back in history with a lot of organizations where a leader with high character started the organization, built it up, created something amazing, but then that leader passes away, and then you start to see it get watered down. And the only reason it don't go under immediately is because that leader created so much momentum that it was other people were able to keep it going. But those other people would not have ever created it from the beginning. So it starts to get watered down and it starts to regress. And I can think of some businesses I can name off, but I ain't going to do that. You probably can think of yourself. And the thing is, I don't have to tell you. You already know. You know those businesses that used to be phenomenal, and today it's hard to believe they're the same organization. But they're still getting amazing results financially. But the customers and the people working within those organizations, they're not treated the same as they used to be. They may still be doing an event. They may even be doing the process. What they're missing, though, is leaders with a high level of character. That's the part I'm talking about. High character is not, you're not born with high character. I can't make you have high character. You can only choose to have high character. See, when I talk about leadership development equals character development. You've heard me say it if you listen long enough. They're the same exact thing. And personal growth is the foundation for leadership development. That's why you got to have the event, a process. The best companies, they do this stuff nonstop, and they do it from the beginning. Whoever the leader was with a high level of character, usually the founder, and they do it, and they do it, and they do it, and they get so much momentum that when they pass away, it lasts a pretty good while. But you can start to see it slowly become watered down. Well, all right. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Got one more coming at you next week to wrap up 2019, and then we can kick off 2020. I'm going to start it with a heavy focus on transformation. It'll be for everyone, no matter your rank, your title, no matter what country you're from, no matter how old you are, no matter what color you are. None of that stuff's going to matter. The stuff I teach you is principles. It applies to people wherever they're at. But this is going to be all about you. This series on transformation is about how do you intentionally transform yourself from wherever you're at to wherever you want to be. If you want to get a head start, you can get on Amazon or go to our online store. Check out 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation, how to become your best self. And I'm going to talk about different components of that book in the next series. Hope you have a great day. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Max Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Max books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.